sir, and thank you for that. Very, very important. You know, Pelham has never failed to remember America's fallen service members, a tribute to its citizens, and particularly, if I may, the veterans of Pelham's own American Legion Post 50. Please join me in recognizing these great American veterans with a huge round of applause. Mayors Lakeby and Mullen, Town Supervisor Laughlin, Legion Commander Vitorello, fellow veterans, members of our armed forces, classmates and teammates, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be home. And I am honored, truly honored, to serve as your guest speaker and to be with you for this most special national observance. Today we honor our nation's fallen. Those Americans who answered the nation's call, never came home, lie forever in hallowed graves. Testimony to all that freedom is not free, and that liberty and our American way of life must be defended, even at the cost of life. In answering their call to duty, they accepted death and made immortal their legacy, gallantry, and patriotic virtue. Underlying Memorial Day and who we honor is what many consider the single greatest personal virtue: courage. It is courage that empowers and underpins selflessness and self-sacrifice. And it must be imbued in our youth, just as it was by the greatest generation, many of us. President Reagan once said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected. We celebrated the 79th anniversary of our nation's victory in the Great World War II. And on the 6th of next month, we should take note of the landings in France in 1944 that ultimately sealed the doom of Nazi tyranny, liberated Western Europe, and significantly contributed to the great Allied victory less than a year later in 1945. Most of our heroes of that war are gone now, having joined over 400,000 of their brothers in arms who died during the war. But their memory lives on with a legacy of courage, sacrifice, and selfless service to the nation. And the same can be said for those Americans who served in the Korean and Vietnam Wars, the Cold War, and the wars that followed in the Middle East and Central Asia. Veterans represent the best of our nation, and every citizen should be proud of them and hold them in high esteem. Memorial Day is about sacrifice. It's about ordinary citizens who fought to protect humanity from oppression, tyranny, slavery, lawlessness, and corruption, and in the process gave everything they had and died. The sacrifice of Americans in uniform is a critical thread of continuity that binds our nation through the ages and accounts more than anything else for why we have remained a free and democratic nation for nearly 250 years. When I was a boy, and a very young one, the words of the great President Kennedy resonated with me. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty. But he said something else that touched me like nothing I had heard before or since, and is perhaps more relevant today than ever before. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. My course in life became very clear to me. I resolved to serve my country as a soldier. But today, the hard reality is that those who choose to wear the uniform of our nation's armed forces represent less than 1/2 of 1% of our population. A thin blue line defends our nation and its citizenry around the clock. Significantly, since our nation ended the military draft in 1973, Americans have been committed into combat no less than 134 times. There is a cost paid by our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen. They're the ones who stepped up. They're the ones who put their lives on the line. And for those who did not come home, they left loved ones behind. Never saw the birthdays, the graduations, the marriages, or otherwise reaped the benefits of their service and sacrifice to the nation and our society. They missed it all because they gave it all. They did not just do it for the Constitution, our flag, or freedom, but more times than not, they were there for their buddies, their comrades, the platoon, the flight, the squad, their shipmates. They were, for the most part, ordinary Joes who found themselves in extraordinary circumstances from which they could not and would not back down. You know, the great American John Wayne once said, "All battles are fought by scared men who'd rather be someplace else." Well, I think I can speak with some authority that he was absolutely right. Today, as we Americans face our national challenges, and the fate of our republic always appears to be on the line from one election to the next, I think we'd all be smart. I think we need to look to God, who at key moments in our nation's history has undoubtedly intervened to protect what many believe to be his last hope in the world. As flawed as it may be, America, in its righteous might, continues to make a difference for a better world. pray for our nation, its leaders, and for the unity of its people to confront the challenges that threaten our nation and the world. There is nothing arrogant or selfish in such a prayer. Our nation's success, our Christian Judeo-culture, our fundamental way of life, and the peace we all seek depends on it. And let's be honest, there are far too many people in our nation today satisfied to be on the take and not contribute anything to the greater good. And I would add, far too many politicians on both sides of the aisle willing to allow that to continue to advance their own personal selfish interests. Perhaps we all need to rediscover that often elusive moral compass. It is long past time to toughen up. Truly ask ourselves if we are a part of the problem or the solution. Seek to serve our country and our communities in a dignified and responsible manner and make a difference as responsible citizens. Only then will we truly honor the Americans we remember today, who gave everything they had in the hope of preserving our nation and the fundamental freedoms we all enjoy. Today, at Arlington and other hallowed grounds where our fallen eternally rest across our nation, and in North Africa, Europe, and across the Pacific, we honor their memory and celebrate that such Americans lived even as we mourn their loss. And may God bless our fallen and their families. May God bless our armed forces. And may God instill in all of us the will to fight, if necessary, to protect and preserve our great country. And may God always bless His last hope on earth, the United States of America. Thank you very much.